Hello, students. So, let's begin with our second chapter of social and political life, which is Understanding Secularism. Before starting the chapter, let's revise what we have learned in the last chapter. We have learned about the five key pillars of the Indian Constitution, naming federalism, parliamentary form of government, separation of powers, fundamental rights, and secularism. So, the last element we are going to learn in detail in this chapter. Before starting the chapter and before going further description about what secularism is, I want you to imagine something. Imagine yourself as a Hindu or Muslim living in a particular part of USA where Christians are dominant in number. Suppose that you, being the despite a US citizen, nobody is willing to rent the house to you. Why? Because you are a Hindu or a Muslim. You don't belong from their community, which is Christians. How would this make you feel? Don't you feel you would be angry, resentful? Okay, then you decided to complain. Your your anger can be in two forms. You might react by saying that Christians should get the same treatment in places where Hindus and Muslims are in a majority. This is a called form of retaliation, means anger versus anger, fight versus fight for the same cause. But if you talk about the other form of your anger, you can say that no one should be discriminated against on grounds of their religious practices and beliefs. And I really hope that being a rational person, you opt for the second option instead of retaliating. So, let's understand what is secularism. It refers to the separation of religion from the state. Let's be more easy in our language. It means that the state does not force you to follow any one religion or to follow any one religion. Also, secularism means equal treatment of all religions by the state, we can say, or by country. Our history provides with us many examples of discrimination or exclusion of the people on the grounds of religion. Let's see the first example, which is in Saudi Arabia, the population of non Muslims like Hindus and Sikhs are not allowed to build their temple, church, etc. Neither they can gather at a public place for prayers. So you can see, just on the basis of religion, they are discriminated for their religious affairs. Jews were persecuted in the Hitler's Germany. You will learn who were the Jews in description in class ninth. Also, the Israel, which is also known as Jewish state, treats their own Muslims and Christian minorities very badly. So, in all these examples, we can see that members of one religious community either exclude or discriminate other members of religious communities. These acts of discrimination take place more easily when one religion is given official recognition by the state. Alright, so that's why we say that the state should not recognize one religion as a state religion. Now, one question might be popping in your mind that, ma'am, why it is important to separate religion from the state power? Yes, it is important because it has two, reasons. One is to function democratically, and second, to protect the freedom of individuals from the religion. So, let's learn them in detail. To function democratically, see, we all know that almost all the countries of the world will have more than one religious group living in them. Within these religious group, there will most likely to be one group which will be in majority. If that group, majority religious group, has access to state power, then this could quite be easy for them to use the power and financial resources to discriminate or execute the people who are minority. So, to avoid this tyranny, or you can say the rule of the majority, could result in the discrimination. Okay, let's talk about the second one, which is to protect the freedom of individuals. See, It means, see, that individual should be given the freedom to exit from the religion. Now, what do you mean by that? Suppose a person who wants to leave the caste of being Hindu and want to convert into Islamic, so he has a freedom to do so. Okay, so if he is exiting from Hindus, he will welcome Islam. So he should be given right to exit from the religion, to embrace or welcome another religion of his choice, or have the freedom to interpret religious teachings differently. To understand this point better, let us take the practice of untouchability. We have read in class 7th also untouchability. Okay, so you might feel that you dislike this practice within Hinduism and therefore you want to try and reform it. However, if state power were in the hands of those Hindus who support untouchability, then do you think that you would have an easy task to try and change this? No. Even if you were a part of the dominant religious group, you might face a lot of resistance from fellow members of your community. So, we can conclude that to function democratically, or to protect the rights of an individual to practice or propagate their own religion, that is why it is necessary to go for separation of religion from the state. Now, our Indian constitution make it mandatory that Indian state should be secular. According to the constitution, only a secular state has some following objectives. Let's see. That one religious community does not dominate the other. Like one majority community should not dominate the another minority community. Second, that some members do not dominate other members of the same religious community. This should not be there that within the Hindus, the Brahmanas or the Brahmins are suppressing the other groups. Third, that the state does not enforce any particular religion nor take away the religious freedom of individuals. This we have already discussed that the state is not forcing you to practice, propagate, execute one particular religion. You have the freedom to go for any religion which you want to practice. Now, the Indian state works in various ways to prevent the objectives which we have just mentioned. They have used various strategies to do so. The first strategy is of distancing itself from religion. Now, what does it mean? See, the Indian state is not ruled by a particular religious group, nor does it support any one religion. In India, the government spaces like law courts, police stations, government schools and offices, they are not supposed to display or promote any one religion. You know, there's a story given in the book that it's a scene of a government school in Simapur, and the students want to celebrate a religious festival. So, few students asked to the teacher, "Sir, there's a big religious festival next month. We have never celebrated in at school. So, can we do this year?" Sir said, "Beta, this is not possible. This is a government school. And government schools don't celebrate any religious festivals in the school premises. Most religious festivals are public holidays. Why? Now tell me the reason why. Because if they will celebrate any of the religious festival, then it would have been a violation of the government's policy of treating all the religions equally. So, government schools cannot promote any one religion either in their morning prayers or through any religious celebrations. This rule is practiced by almost all the private schools as well as public or government schools. Now, second strategy is strategy of non-interference. That means that in order to respect the sentiments of all the other religions, the state does not interfere with religious practices. Like there is again a story which you can see here that there's a group of friends who has recently bought scooters and they are going for a ride together. So one is asking, "Hey, I hope you have a helmet. You know the law in Delhi requires that you wear one. Why aren't you wearing a helmet? Do you want to be fined? So the other one is saying, who is wearing a turban or a pagdi, he's saying, don't worry, I won't be fined. The first one is saying again, hey Paramjit, why won't you be fined? Then he answered, the other friend, for Sikh, wearing a pagdi or a turban is a very important part of their religion. The government cannot force me to wear a helmet. By this, we can say that the Indian state recognizes that wearing a pagdi is central to Sikh religious practice and they will not interfere with this, and this will allow an exception in the law. I hope this is clear that how the state is not interfering in anyone's religious beliefs and practices. Yes? Let's see the last strategy which the Indian state has adopted is the strategy of intervention. Now, we can take the example of untouchability again here. Example, the members of upper caste Hindus of the same religion dominate the members of lower caste within it. So, in order to prevent this religion based exclusion or discrimination of lower caste by the upper caste, the Indian constitution has banned untouchability. Now, imagine the state is not intervene in this social practice. So, this would be continued and will never be abolished. Now, here's a question, when will the state intervene in the religious matter? So, the answer is the state will intervene in religion in order to end a social practice that believes to discriminate or exclude or violate the fundamental rights of lower caste who are also considered the citizens of this country. Even the killing of baby infanticide is a ritual in some of the religions, but here also the state will intervene because it is violating the fundamental right of a child to take birth on this earth. I hope you have understood that what were the strategies adopted by the Indian state to recognize it as a secular state. Now, if we talk about the examples of other secular countries, we say that United States of America or USA also follows the secularism. That means they also separate the religion from the state. But here's a twist. When USA is saying that there is a separation, that means it will be a strict separation that neither the state nor any religion can interfere in the affairs of one another. So, there is a significant way in which Indian secularism different from the USA secularism. How? Because we have seen the Indian constitution intervene in the Hindu religious practices in order to abolish untouchability. In the same way, like female infanticide, killing of female infanticides. Whereas in America, there is no say of the government or the state in any religious affair, whether it is harming or giving the benefit to any religious community. So we have seen the Indian state is a secular state which works in various ways to prevent religious domination. The Indian constitution also guarantees fundamental rights that are based on these secular principles. However, this is not to say that there is no violation of these rights in Indian society. Indeed, it is precisely because such violations happen frequently that we need a constitutional mechanism to prevent them from happening. So, I hope you have understood the chapter and is clear with the meaning of secularism.